Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It's a flashback episode this week, flashing back to the past of the DC multiverse, because last week's was an epic and we have a couple more work-intensive, labour-intensive episodes coming up, so we're having a little flashback here to let us catch our breath. It's one that we've had on the schedule for a while, isn't that right, Peter?
It most certainly is, and I am pumped with excitement.
Oh my goodness.
To do this one, yes.
I'm really glad you clarified that. So yeah, we're reading a story. It's the third story, I believe, from issue 116 of Batman, published on the 17th of April 1958. Reprinted in, I think it's issue 12 of 80-page Giant. Same one that reprints the Tiger Man story that we did last year. So if you have that to hand, listeners, if you can't find your copy of Batman 116, get hold of that instead. Peter will now tell us about the very fruity, very summary-looking cover to issue 116.
It's got the usual stuff at the top, the DC Superman National Comics logo, the Batman logo, June number 116, approved by the Comics Code Authority. Right, now that all that's out the way, we're in a castle. There are steps leading up to a throne. There's an empress or queen on the throne, and there are a couple of Roman-looking soldiers at the front who are presenting her with a captured Batman and Robin. Gasp!
Gasp indeed.
Prepare to gasp again, because flying through an open window, we have creatures that look like Batman. They seem to be wearing the grey leotard of Batman, the yellow belt of Batman. They have big pointy ears, like, well, Man-Bat really, and they have wings, the same colour as Batman's cape. Gosh! There's two flying in the window, and there are more outside waiting to come in. The Queen is pointing at Batman and Robin and saying,
"Seize them!"
And Batman is looking at what's going on, and he says, "Robin, those strange flying creatures are attacking, and the Queen thinks we're members of their tribe."
I love this cover. This is amazing. It just pops.
Without a doubt. Mm-hmm.
The contrast between the yellow of the castle wall and the grey and blue of the Bat People is just amazing. It just pops. That's the only word for it.
Absolutely.
Very, very nice. So, we shall start the story properly.
In their time, Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder have battled many a bizarre foe, but when a freak storm propels them into another dimension, fate casts them in the role of villains. How the Cape Crime Fighters cope with this challenge is revealed in The Winged Bat People.
And this opening splash image kind of echoes the cover in that Batman and Robin are standing near the Queen, who we should describe as a sort of red skirt, a fitted red top. She's a spectacular white headdress which appears to be made of feathers. She's long blonde hair. And three of the Bat People that Pete described from the cover are flying in through the window, and Batman and Robin are trying to lasso them, as it were, with their batarangs. And indeed, while this is going on, Batman is saying,
"That's it, Robin. Our batarangs attached to our silken ropes will ground them."
Robin says, "But how long can we keep this up? There will be more on the way." And the Queen looks appalled at all this. Queen looks a bit like my friend Lauren. I should show this. And yeah, and that's it. That sets us up. So, into the story properly. Our caption sets the scene.
As Gotham City braces itself for a hurricane one day, a familiar bat-shaped plane heads into the storm's fury.
Yes, we see the bat plane flying through, indeed, a very messy, cloudy sky. Evidence of wind going on. Clouds scudding across a boiling sky. From inside the bat plane, we hear Batman saying,
"The Weather Bureau's planes reported too much turbulence for them to penetrate to the eye of the hurricane and send back data on its course, Robin. But maybe our bat plane can make it." As the aircraft shudders under pounding winds, Batman turns on the reserve jets. But instead of surging forward...
Yes, the sky outside the bat plane is turned a vicious bright pink. There's shades of orange and yellow and white. They just seem to, something almost seems to be, as I said, the sky seems to be boiling. This white light, very intense white light, is just in front of the plane as Robin says, "Batman, all colour is fading into that odd bright centre."
No wonder. We passed the sonic barrier at a speed 10 times greater than was ever thought possible. Seconds later, as the colour phenomenon vanishes...
Yes, outside the bat plane, the sky seems to have returned to normal. Robin says, "Now I don't even feel the storm."
Of course not. We've landed. But where? As the astounded pair step out...
Yes, it's a very odd landscape, almost Dali-esque. It's a wide, bright orange desert plain with odd-looking trees. Tall trunks, but almost like cauliflowers growing at the end of, flower buds. It's very unusual. Robin strokes his chin and says, "This looks like another planet, but that's impossible."
Not exactly. The effect of our high acceleration through the sonic barrier is unknown. We may have broken into another dimension. Suddenly,
indeed, arrows start falling out of the sky and striking the ground around the dynamic duo. Robin points and says, "Watch out! Somebody's attacking us!"
let's stop them before they get our range. Twin bat bolos whirl into the nearest tree with surprising effects.
Yes, and it seems that the people firing the arrows at Batman and Robin were hiding up in the trees because a couple of chaps wearing what to my eyes look like blue kilts and red hats fall from the trees towards the ground as Batman says,
Quick, let's grab them, and maybe keep the others from attacking till we can explain we mean no harm. But just then,
out of nowhere, a weighted net appears and falls over our two heroes as Robin says, "Uh-oh, looks as if they've got the drop on us."
what's more, it seems they were expecting us. They're so well prepared. As more bowmen ring the trapped pair, Batman's words are confirmed.
Yes, now, if you remember when Peter described the cover, he compared the soldiers to sort of Greek or Roman-style classical armoured figures, and that's what we seem to see standing around. There's one guy wearing a very obvious Roman-style helmet, standing in front of Batman and Robin, and he's saying,
Truly I mistrusted Arco when he warned of an attack by you Bat people, but Arco was right.
Batman looks puzzled and says,
An attack? Bat people? But...
This centurion-looking figure pulls a bow and arrow himself and points the arrow at Batman, saying,
Seize them, and wheel the bird machine along too, so the Queen may see it.
Serious face time, Batman whispers to the boy wonder.
Better go peacefully, Robin, till we can size things up better.
And so, a slow dissolve.
1 hour later,
and we've arrived at a very interesting stone structure. There's a touch of the Aztec temples in a way, almost like the Egyptian pyramids, actually. Tall white blocks of stone forming an archway, which seems to be made of gold and has inscriptions on it. A few of the soldiers are wheeling the Batplane along behind them as Batman and Robin are led in under the arch, and Robin remarks, "Why, this walled city looks something like the kind museum expeditions dig up."
But different enough to convince me we're in another dimension. Shortly, at the palace...
Yes, we see the Queen sitting on her throne. The throne is a large green structure. There's a backdrop hanging behind her, which is orange with a large white star motif on it. And the Queen is sat on her throne. There's a chap stood next to her, wearing a sort of purple kilt skirt type effort with a yellow belt and a white tunic and a golden collar and a little golden helmet with a little twisty thing on top. And someone appears to be supplanting himself in shadow in front of the Queen. He doesn't really get a line, but the Queen is saying, "So, those who said that Arco, my minister, was a traitor were wrong. Else this attack he predicted would have found us unprepared. Bring in the captives." After the Queen says this, the chap standing to her right, who if we zoom in we can see he has a bit of a tufty white chin beard thing going on, he thinks to himself, "Captives? What odd chance has bolstered my false reports?" Batman and Robin are led in. Batman says,
"But, Your Majesty, we know nothing of the attack your bowmen were awaiting."
The Queen raises a finger and replies, "Much above average are these members of the Bat People, but their lies on their lips are familiar. To the dungeons with them!" That's why she's raising her finger, she's gesturing.
Abruptly...
Yes, before they can be led off. Suddenly, flying through the open window above the throne, come a whole bunch of rocks, that's what it looks like, striking the throne, making all the soldiers panic and run off, as one red-haired soldier cries,
"A new attack by the Bat People! These two! They were only decoys!"
Batman grabs the Queen, pulling out of the way of the falling rocks, and he cries,
"Watch out!"
In gratitude, the Queen says, I might have been killed, but your alertness saved my life. Why?" Batman points up to the open window where the rocks were coming from and says,
"Explanations later. Right now, we're under attack. The Bat People. Men with wings. Now I see why you connected us with them."
"I'm lost. They seek to take me prisoner." The camera pulls out, as it were, and we see the Bat People flying through the open window, and indeed, as Peter described, they look very much like Batman. Their bodies and their face are the same colour as Batman's leotard. Their wings are the same colour as Batman's cape. They have large pointy ears, little hooks at the end of their feet almost, wide eyes, vampiric-looking teeth, and they're all flying in through the window, and a caption reads,
Suddenly, from a gloved hand spirals a batarang trailing a silken strand.
Yeah, Batman has hurled his batarang up and has managed to circle 2 or 3 of the invaders, and as he does this, he says,
This will snarl their plans, but not for long.
and the Queen, obviously doing a bit of blue sky thinking, says, Your bird machine, can it fly to safety?
A jet plane isn't meant for indoor takeoffs, but it might serve another purpose. Come along.
With that, Batman punches out one of the winged bat people on the jaw, which makes him drop his club, which is interesting. They're all bearing what look just like baseball bats, actually. They head towards the bat plane, but a caption reads,
Before he can reach it, the bat plane's mighty jets erupt.
Yes, we see the jets firing, and we can see that Robin is gleefully in the cockpit of the bat plane, waving to Batman, who says,
Robin had the same idea of kicking up a breeze. See what it's doing to them.
Yeah, and we see that the wind from the engine is making the Queen's dress blow up and Batman's cape blow up, and then we see the bat people being bowled over, blown away by the weight of the wind coming from the jets, as the Queen says, The bird machine's strong winds whirl the bat people around the room like falling leaves.
And when they can't fly, they're a poor match for your soldiers.
Yes, we see the soldiers firing their arrows and then grabbing the bat people who've fallen to the ground. All very satisfying. There's a slow dissolve as we arrive at the top of page 5.
Later, as a dynamic duo are feted.
Yes, the Queen is sitting at the head of the table. They're having a celebratory feast. Batman and Robin to her left. The senior Centurion-type figure we saw earlier on. A couple of other individuals, including a chap with red hair with a headband. And Arco, who we saw standing next to the Queen's throne when we first met the Queen. Again, it looks like he's wearing one of those propeller hats that Calvin had to send away for in Calvin and Hobbes that one time.
It's almost like a papal headdress, isn't it?
Probably. What happens when a pope dies?
Another one popes
popes
up. There we are.
There we are.
Apologies to our Roman Catholic listeners there.
Yes. So, they're all sat round, and we see one red-haired lad struggling with a large plate full of gosh knows what that yellow concoction is, but we can see there's interesting-looking fruits in the plates in front of them. Everyone's having a great time, goblets and all this. And a Centurion man is saying,
If Batman and Robin fell into our ambush by chance, then Arco's warning of an attack might have been to divert us from the real attack on the palace. What do you say, Arco?
Arco slams the table in anger, saying, He who maligns me is the traitor, not I. And my sword will wrest the truth from him. And he pulls his sword, holds it in front of him, challenging the Centurion lad, who pulls out his own sword, and everyone else looks on appalled as Batman says,
Wait! You must not be divided when the Bat People still threaten.
It's all getting very Shakespearean, isn't it, listeners? If there was ever a one that we should do live, it should be this one.
Yeah.
Because it lends itself to theatrical pronunciation. But anyway, Batman continues in panel 3 of page 5.
If both of you and the Queen will fly with me over the Bat People's territory tomorrow morning, perhaps we can find a way to bring about peace.
To which Arco says, An excellent idea, but state business prevents me from joining you.
And so, next morning...
We see the Batplane flying over a very interesting landscape. Inside the plane, Batman is flying with the Queen at his side, Robin and what looks like the senior Centurion figure sat in the back seat. Beneath them, there's a big scar on the landscape, big hole in the ground almost, as the Queen points and clarifies, saying, You see, Batman? We're unable to cross Black Rock Chasm, which circles the Bat People's Plateau, but they can fly across at will to attack us.
And of course, there's no way of bridging the chasm to get your bowman across.
As Batman says this, the Centurion looks above and points towards
an odd-looking cloud beyond.
Odd indeed, for as the bat plane passes beneath it...
Yes, 4 bat people emerge and drop a large net over the bat plane. It causes flames to start billowing out, all sorts of havoc. From inside we hear Robin saying, It was a trick. The bat people knew we were coming and dropped that net to force our landing.
Hold tight, everyone. We're going into a power dive to quench the fire.
But there isn't enough distance for a power dive. We'll crash.
Not if I aim her straight down into the gorge. That gives us an easy 2,000 feet extra.
Brilliant thinking, Batman. Superb.
Roaring into the canyon, the bat plane noses up just as its underbelly grazes the rocky bottom.
Gosh, I hate grazing a rocky bottom. Yeah, that's a say what you see caption if ever there was one. The plane starts to arc up. From inside we hear the Boy Wonder saying, You did it, Batman. The dive's force pulled the net off and smothered the fire. That was lucky.
As they return to the palace,
the Centurion says,
The Bat People would never have thought of that net trick, and only one man could have warned them of the bat plane's flight.
To which the Queen, narrowing her eyes, says, Arco! No wonder he wasn't anxious to be on board.
He'll think his plan succeeded.
And if it weren't for your quick wits, Batman, He would have.
As the Batplane lands on the palace grounds,
Yes, we see it landing outside, everyone disembarks, but then we hear a voice from the top of the battlements saying, "So you escaped the Bat People's trap, only to become my prisoners. Surrender, or my catapults will be released." To which the Queen says, "The traitor Arco has acted swiftly in my absence." The Centurion takes her arm, saying,
Your Majesty, for myself I would choose death, but to spare you, we must give in. For now.
Batman and Robin, still inside the cabin of the Batplane, Batman says to his pal,
I know exactly where Arco is standing behind that wall, judging from his voice. And I know how to reach him.
moments later, the Batplane's catapult hurtles him over the wall.
Amazing. Yep, we see Batman flying over. We see Arco standing next to a large old catapult that we used to get in storybooks when I was a little boy. Arco standing watching Batman arriving, and Batman is thinking,
I hope I'm in time before he orders his own catapults to fire.
and then, wow, this is amazing. This might be one of my favourite panels we've ever had. Arco yells, "Batman!" as Batman lands on him, and we see behind there's a big sort of storage box that the front door has been opened and all the rocks that were inside it to get used in the catapults come falling out. Looks as though Batman has managed to strike it while he was vaulting past. It's not very clear. Soldiers panic and run away, and one of them, as they tries to make his way towards the exit in the next panel, yells,
This way! It's our only way of escape!
"Not anymore, it isn't!" yells Robin, who has just swung in on a rope, blocking their route.
With the traitors subdued,
See some of the soldiers being led off in the background, Archon's guys being led off in the background, but the Centurion is holding Archon firm, and I'm really distracted by his propeller cone head hat. He raises a finger and gesticulates towards Batman, saying, "Our capture is futile, for even now the Bat People are headed here in a full-scale attack, too well planned to fail."
with the traitors led away, the daring duo inspect their damaged craft.
Yes, we see Batman and Robin down on their knees, looking at the undercarriage of the Batplane. Batman is saying,
The attack is overdue, and I think this is the explanation. Look at these rock smudges.
"Rock smudges? Looks more like coal to me."
Exactly. In fact, the name Black Rock Chasm is fitting. The chasm must be lined with a solid vein of coal, which explains the delayed attack.
Not to me. Not to me either, Robin, let's be honest. Batman, climbing up into the cabin of the Batplane, replies,
Come along then, and you'll see. We'll fly back to the chasm, perhaps in time to end all attacks for years to come.
Plane takes flight.
Soon after, a strange sight greets the pair as they near the chasm.
Yes, see the Batplane flying over the chasm. A few Bat People seem to be having some trouble very near to the opening of the chasm. Robin remarks, "Why, something keeps blowing them back every time they try to fly the chasm."
That burning net fired the coal seams we dived into earlier, and the result is a powerful updraft of rising hot air.
The Batplane flies low over the chasm. Batman saying,
Some coal veins burn for years, but the coal isn't burning at the rear yet. Before the Bat People realize it, we'll fire it with our jets and cut them off for years.
and with that, Batman activates the jets of the Batplane, which makes the whole coal seam burst into huge, violent flames.
But suddenly, as a spurt of extra power speeds the craft forward,
Yes, we get the evidence of the Batplane accelerating because there seems to be a massive burst of concussive force from the coal seam. Robin yells, "Batman, we're blowing up!"
not us. Our jets exploded a cloud of coal dust, but maybe we can still ride the blast shock. In fact, look, our rate of acceleration is terrific.
Now, listeners, you know when we get a bit of a narrative leap sometimes that I really like? We get a bit of a narrative leap here. A caption reads,
Next day, in the Wayne home, Bruce and Dick discuss their latest adventure as Batman and Robin.
Yep, in civvies, Dick wearing his red jumper and his white shirt, Bruce wearing a blue... Is that a blue dressing gown? It looks like he's got a big newspaper in his lap as Dick is saying, "What bothers me is that explosion sending us back to our own dimension so suddenly that the Queen probably thinks we're dead."
Maybe it's just as well that she does, Dick.
"Why?"
I was a hero to her. If she thought I'd return some day, it might keep her from marrying that officer. But you're not old enough to notice such things.
That line delivered with a smile, and a small caption reads,
The
end.
end.
Well, that was a very abrupt ending.
It's only 8 pages. They had to finish it off somehow.
This is true. Thoughts then?
That was a really fun runaround. I mean, again, it's like one of these things we've talked about in the Silver Age. All the different ways you can go to parallel Earths or other dimensions. And this is one. This is basically accelerating in a plane in a storm. No lightning this time.
but it's just great fun. I love the fact that they're basically up almost doing weather experiments at the start.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there obviously must be some kind of astonishingly strong rapid acceleration to. Do you think it's maybe affecting the vibratory rate?
Must be. Certainly affecting my vibratory rate.
I heard that rumour.
I started it.
There must be some aspect to it, I think, especially when at the end the explosion generates the force that sends them back home.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know, it is a bit of a narrative jump, and it's unfortunate. It does jar slightly, but I tell you, the colouring and the rendering in that panel of them all flying back, hopefully there's room for that in the socials. It's gorgeous.
It looks like the sort of panel that Liechtenstein would have ripped off.
Exactly. That's Logopolis. That's exactly what I was going to say. It looks like it looks like a cover to an issue of Sea Devils or something. It's beautifully rendered. It would look great blown up to an enormous size on the canvas in someone's living room, as Pete said, Liechtenstein. The only sort of disappointing thing I felt about it is that we get nothing really on how Archon sort of became involved with the Bat People, or how he met them, or indeed what the Bat People's gig is. Are they, if they live in that chasm and they can't get, are they going to all just die out? That's a bit. We don't really get an explanation on why they look so much like Batman, or
just evolution. Someone's got to evolve into Batman.
That's a stretch.
I mean, looking at them, they really are a precursor to Man-Bat, because this is the golden age Man-Bats, really. Or Men-Bats. But yeah, because they really have got that kind of hybrid look of the look, part Batman, part Man-Bat.
Yeah, but it's almost like, and bear with me here, listeners, it's almost like if Man-Bat was cosplaying as Batman.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but so many questions. Did Grant ever do any stories with these guys when Grant was writing Batman? It feels like the sort of thing that he would have done.
Not to my knowledge, but he did do one with Man-Bats, where a group of assassins, I think it was it League of Assassins, took the Man-Bat potion and basically became a squad of Man-Bats.
Wow. So
that's very similar to it, but it's not related to this story in particular.
I'll need to read that. That sounds cracking.
Yeah.
My questions, obviously, that I have about it all, they don't detract from the fact that I really did enjoy it, but I do sort of wish there was maybe another. It's the trouble with these high concept, short Silver Age stories, is that they only kind of scratch the surface of the potential of what's being dealt with here. I would have liked maybe to have seen a little bit more of the Bat People civilization, maybe found out how Archon became involved with them. Did he even create them somehow or whatever?
Could be.
A lot of untapped potential there. Listeners, I think we've ended up calling him Archon instead of Arco, but that's probably because of the Fantastic Four stuff. Apologies. It's very late and we're very tired.
The R616 podcast takes a while to fade out. There we are. There's waves.
We're not going to go back and edit everything every time I've said.
I did like the banquet scene. It's very. A lot of this feels like a 50s Hammer movie almost.
Logopolis.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's the one with Bernard Cribbins and Peter Cushing? What's that one? Yes, there you go. It reminds me very much of that.
I was trying to do Aisha's voice when I was playing the Queen.
There we are.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well played, sir.
I am she who must be obeyed. Yeah, that's instantly what I thought of when I was reading it. That was a great movie. Watch that as a double bill with Daleks Invasion of 2150 AD, and you'd have the best afternoon of your life. But I think they were outrunning at the same time, actually. I think she happened before the Dalek film, but that's for another podcast. Yeah, it has that haggard sort of feel to it. There's a touch of the Burrows to, hero displaced to another civilization, becomes involved with the female head of state. Very enjoyable. Yeah. I would have loved that to have been obviously we wouldn't have, because it would have taken us 3 hours to record it. But it would have been great if this had been a full-length story instead of just one of 3 very enjoyable stories in this issue.
Oh yeah, they could have really fleshed it out and given a lot more character to the protagonist, to the antagonist, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And it's good that Batman does specify that they go to another dimension, so that obviously...
Yep, a few times actually, yeah.
Yeah, that's our justification for doing it, so that's fine. That's good. In case you're wondering, listeners, for anyone who's not paying attention at the back.
I do love the fact at the end it is literally the explanation, and Bruce is sitting there in this classic smoking jacket look. The only thing missing is the pipe in his mouth.
Yes.
That's really it.
It's very obvious that Bruce wasn't as enamoured with the Queen as he thinks that she might have been with him.
Of course, because everyone would love Batman. That's it.
Yeah.
I was a hero to her. Yeah.
This is the sort of story I would love to see in a Batman movie. I'm tired serious, grim and gritty Gotham City Batman movies. I would wish someone would have the nerve just to take this sort of story or the other ones in this really enjoyable issue, or all the other stuff that around that sort of time, and give a proper cosmic sort of Silver Age Batman where imagination had no limit, where it wasn't concerned with him being a detective or grim and gritty. You know, I'm not saying they need to adapt Robin Dies at Dawn, but a more fantastical Batman movie would be a breath of fresh air.
I mean, that's one of the things that was amazing about the Grant Morrison run in Batman, is that Grant mined all of the Silver Age silliness and gave it a modern twist.
Yes.
And embraced it as opposed to, you know, just kind of like sweeping it all under the carpet. Because let's face it, this was Batman for, at least 20 years?
Yeah.
You know, this is like from the 50s through to the 70s, with a bit of Biff Bam Pow in the mid-60s.
Yeah.
He was never always the Dark Knight detective, and people tend to forget about this era. And it's joyous. The stories are phenomenal.
My whole sort of theory in that is, and I've said this many times, I think I've said it elsewhere, you know, I won't be too negative about it, but I think a lot of people like Batman as their favourite character because he is so traditionally sort of more recently modern, sort of seen as this sort of modern thinking anyway, as this dark, grim, gritty Avenger. But as Pete says, for the longest time he wasn't. And I almost feel sometimes that people feel that they're maybe embarrassed about being into comics or whatever, so they have to say, oh, Batman's my favourite because he's dark and serious, because they want to be taken seriously. And it's like, mate, comics are amazing. Just embrace them. Have fun with them. Look at the bright colours and the costumes. Think of the impracticality of it all. Why doesn't Spider-Man get arrested straight away because all of his neighbours have spotted him climbing out the same window? You know, it's don't take them seriously. Take them seriously and treat them seriously, but don't think that, you know, have fun with it for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's why I got so tired of endless grim and gritty reboots in the 90s, because it's like, come on. That's why Mark Waid's run on World's Finest just now is so much fun.
Yes,
It flies in the face of all that, taking it uber seriously, and just, they should be entertaining. And I don't think endlessly sort of, I'm getting a bit soapboxy here, kids, so I'll wind it up. I don't think that grim and gritty is always the way to go, or if it is, not for too long.
Well, listeners, do you think that grim and gritty is the way to go? Or do you think Silver Age silliness is the way to go? Why don't you write to us and let us know? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, because we're putting up some lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth2 Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2. And it's the number 2 for all of our socials.
If you're feeling generous, you can go to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leave us a positive review. You can find your way to our Linktree page and buy Peter the price of a beverage as he edits out all of our sleepy daft mistakes from the recording of this episode. As I always like saying at this point, tell your pals, spread the word, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Batman will return in a couple of weeks as a member of a very large ensemble cast. So hopefully that'll tantalise and tease you as to what might be fast approaching. Long overdue, some people might say. But there you are.
On that bat shell, I've been Peter.
And I've been David, and we'll see you again soon on
The Earth2
Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
There is a kind of Empress Queen on the phone.
Yes.
Talking to her pals.
She's on the phone, on the throne. Cluds. That can be an outtake, please.
Suddenly.
Yes, suddenly indeed. Oh, I just got an eBay notification. I want it. Right.
Suddenly, David won something on eBay.